Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to World of Tanks here with the Churchill I. Going to do a re-review of this Churchill. Because, as you can see, I do have my Mark of Excellence on my Churchill here. So, I'm still trying to grind my way up to the second mark. As you can see, I'm at 78.93%. And I need to get to within the top 85% of people for the second mark. However, competition is now a lot stiffer to actually progress up here, so I've got to try and get better in my Churchill. So yeah, there's that. And so I thought let's do a re-review because I've been playing this some more. I found out some more things about it, its playstyle, things like that. So yes, let's start off with 700 HP. Which is the most out of any Tier 5 heavy tank other than the Churchill III and the OI Experimental with the broken Japanese heavy lines. And as compared to other Tier 7 heavies, you've got the Excelsior at 670, you've got the French at 650 with the BDR G1B. With the Americans, you've got 660 for the T1 heavy. For the Russians, you've got the KV-1 at 640, I think, 660 for the KV-1S, and the Germans have got the VK 3001H, which is at 660, I think. So yes, the Churchill does have a large swathe of hit points at Tier 5, and did sit at the top of the Persian until it was sort of moved over with the OI Experimental, because, why not? So, looking at the armour, the front of the hull does seem very thick. However, that can be deceiving, because at the front of the hull, really, the bits that are 177mm are this bit here, not including the 3-inch howitzer, and the bits around this driver's viewport. This lower plate, or the lower glacis, I don't think counts, and the upper glacis also I don't think is 177, even though it is sloped. I think it may be less than that. So yeah, only parts of the front of the hull are actually 177mm, and looking at it, it is a fairly small target compared to the whole rest of the Churchill. If we look at the Matilda Black Prince, here's the entire front of the hull. For the Churchill, you've only got this little bit, considering the fact that the tracks are what make up, a lot of this. So it does say it's 177 at the front, but only in parts. 63 at the side, 50 at the rear. The sides and rear aren't that great, however, angling at the side like this around a rock is something that I like to do. Keeping yourself hidden behind the rock, your turret is sloped at the side, and also your side armour is also sloped, so shots will ricochet off both the turret and the side of the hull if you're hidden behind a rock or a building or whatever. And the front of the hull is another inherent weak spot with the Churchill III, because the Churchill III, it says, it's got 176 at the front, which is actually deceiving once again, because this entire base of machine gun at the front here and the driver's hatch viewport is also the weak spot of the Churchill III, so that is an inherent thing with the Churchills. And as for the turret, well, the turret is terrible. It's not even medium tank. Well, it's more sort of medium tank armour than heavy tank, because it's only 88 at the front, 88 at the side, and 76 at the rear. So it's flat and sloped, so if you angle it, then sure, but then there's just too much angling to be going on, and, well, yeah, it's not that great. It's not really heavy tank armour. If we have a look here at something like, let's go for the French. Come on, France, there you go, PDR, G1B. We go here, the front of the hull is only 60, and that's terrible for a heavy tank. So, yeah, the BDR isn't known for its armour. Yeah, even the front of the turret is only 80 on the BDR, and the BDR is a terrible heavy tank. And it's a French heavy tank. This is the British. You think the British Churchills of being, strong, able to take up a lot of damage, but look, T1 Heavy still has 95 at the front, and shots go straight through that, and that's 95 at the hull, on 101 in the stock turret. So even the T1 Heavy has got better frontal hull than the Churchill has on its turret, and considering the fact that the turret is where the gun is, and that's what they're probably going to be shooting at if you can manage to get your, hull hidden behind something. So yeah, it's the armor is deceiving, and it's not that great for the front of the turret. As for mobility, it weighs 40 tons with only 350 horsepower engine. It's not fast. It is a Churchill. Churchills are not known for being fast. With my current loadout, not including improved vents because, well, it's 600,000 credits, I'm going to wait until that is on sale in order to actually get that. But yeah, so it weighs 40.2 tons with a 43 load limit. The engine that it has is a Bedford Twin 6, basically bus engine, 350 horsepower, 20% chance of foreign impact, weighs 1500 kilograms. It's fairly weighty. And here's the stock engine, the Meadows DAV, and you'll be using 300 horsepower to power this thing, which is very, very weighty. So yeah, it's it only has this 8.7 horsepower per ton ratio, which is terrible. You will not be going anywhere fast, you will not be going up hills particularly quickly either. So yeah, good luck with that. As you can see, top speed is only 25.7 with a 14 kilometers per hour reverse speed. It's a Churchill. At least that's one thing that you can rely on, the fact that it is slow. It's an infantry tank, therefore it's slow. And the traverse speed isn't that great either, 24 degrees per second, that's pretty terrible. However, I don't find it that much of a problem myself, because of the gun that I'm using, which is the top gun, and I will explain why. Which is why here I'm not going with clutch braking, I'm going with off-road driving for my driver. And more on the crew later. They're a very good crew. So, yeah, it's not very mobile, doesn't have that great mobility. It's also very large. 10.1 concealment of a stationary Churchill, with only a 6.05 when moving. So, it's gonna be spotted very quick, because look at this thing. It's massive. Here's your Churchill. There's the Matilda Black Prince. And the Matilda Black Prince has got a better concealment, as does the T-34, as does the Sherman. Yeah, the Sherman does. So, yeah, it's a Churchill, it's a very easy target to spot, and it's very large. Please ignore the screaming and shouting going on outside, I can't do anything about that. So, let's move on here. 350 meters view range, with a 550 meter signal range. So yeah, the view range is alright, I suppose, for tier 5. I mean, the Matilda Black Prince has got the same. Sherman 3's got a better one, as does the Crusader as a light tank. Yeah, T-34 doesn't have that great view range if we go here for the turret. 350 meters, so yeah, it's pretty standard, but then again, it's also not that great. But we're only at tier 5, but yeah, it is sort of on the lower side. It is, after all, a heavy tank. And the radio isn't that great either. Here's the top radio, the radio set number 19 Mark III. It's not that great. It's a British radio. The British aren't known for their radios in World of Tanks. The radio range isn't that great. As for the firepower, however, that's the one good thing about the Churchill. If you couldn't deal with anything else with the Churchill, if you just can't get used to the slow speed, the not great maneuverability, the not that great radio range, and the terrible turret armor, if there's one thing that should salvage the Churchill, it's this top gun. The 75mm Vickers high velocity gun, which is an amazing gun for a tier 5 tank. However, more on that later, because this will be possibly the stock gun that you will be using if you haven't already gone through the Valentine, Grant, Crusader, or if you hadn't already got up to the Cromwell, then you will be using this 2-pounder Mark X gun. It's a 2-pounder, so it's only 40mm. It has a very good rate of fire, 28.6 rounds per minute. Terrible penetration, 78 millimeters. You can't even get through a turret of another Churchill with that penetration. 121 with APCR. only 50 average damage with 60 with high explosive, but then that's only 23 penetration. Alright dispersion, 0.36, and a pretty good aim time of 1.5 seconds, but, well, that gun comes from, well, the stock Churchill. If you have already gone up the other British line, then you will have, if you've got to the Grant, the Crusader, then you'll be able to use this thing, the gun quickfire 6-pounder Mark III. 57mm, so it has a slightly less rate of fire, but still very good, to 27.3 rate of fire rounds per minute, 105 average penetration, which is better but still not that great, 170 with APCR and 30 with high explosive, 75 average damage, or 100 with high explosive. Terrible dispersion of 0.43, but a pretty good aim time of 1.9 seconds, and, well, it's better, but it's still not that great. 105 penetration and terrible dispersion isn't that great. However, you can, alternatively, use this Ordnance Quickfire 3-inch Howitzer Mark I, which you will have got from the Matilda at Tier 4. So it's 76mm with a 16.7 rounds per minute rate of fire, 38 average penetration, or 100 with heat, 175 average damage with HE, 110 with heat. Very horrible dispersion of 0.51 because it is a howitzer, but it has a decent aim time of 1.9 seconds. So, average penetration, 38, tier 5, yep, terrible. I was using this, it's not that great on the Churchill. Bearing in mind you have one in the hull, which you can't use, so yeah, it's not that great. Then, if you've already progressed further into the Crusader, or the Valentine, the Sherman III, or indeed the Cromwell, then you will be able to go straight ahead and use this thing, which is the gun Quickfire 6-pounder Mark V gun. However, I don't think... Nope, you'll have to research the upgraded turret, which is the Churchill III turret. As you can see, there is the stock Churchill I turret. It's a very odd-looking thing. But it does actually have better armour at the front with 101. However, you can only fit either the 2-pounder or the 3-inch howitzer, so unless you're going for 121 penetration with just a full APCR with your 2-pounder, or if you want to try and use heat with your 3-inch howitzer, you're not going to be doing much in any battle that you play in, unless you're fighting, you know, tier 4s or tier 3s. So once you've upgraded to the Churchill III turret with less armour at the front, but yet able to mount these better guns, you'll be able to use this, which is the, you know, Quickfire 6-pounder Mark V gun. 57mm, 27.3 rate of fire rounds per minute, which is different to the Valentine, because the Valentine is just a big middle finger to you, because it has half the rate of fire on the Valentine than it does on the Churchill, but I've gone over that in my Valentine rant when I reviewed the Valentine. But 110 average penetration, that's the same as the Churchill III. As you can see, here's the Churchill III's 6-pounder Mark V. Here we go. So 110 average penetration, 75 average damage, or 100 with HE, but it only has 30 penetration with that. 0.41 dispersion, which is pretty terrible. 1.9 second aim time. This is a gun that some people will be using. It's basically the same as the Churchill III's, however the Churchill III has got a slightly less rate of fire, slightly more inaccurate, and doesn't get the option to use high explosive, so yeah. But this is one gun that some people may choose to use because it is the final 6-pounder that you will get before you get onto the 275mm. So, once again, if you've already gone through the Valentine, which I pity you if you have, like I had to try and get to the Archer, which I finally have. But if you've already gone through the Valentine and you don't want to use the 6-pounder, you can always use the 75mm gun Mark V, which is 75mm with a 20 rate of fire rounds per minute, 91 average penetration, or 144 with APCR, 110 average damage with 175 with high explosive. Then you've got 0.42 dispersion, so it's horribly inaccurate. at a 1.9 second aim time. So that's an alternative if you don't want to have, if you want lower penetration but higher alpha damage. But it's tier 5, 91mm just isn't going to cut it. It's not really going to cut it at tier 4 either. Then you come to this. And this is what you've all been waiting for. It's the 75mm Vickers high velocity gun. It's a 75mm gun with a 12.5 rate of fire rounds per minute, but 145 penetration. It's the outstanding feature of the Churchill if you can't deal with anything else of the Churchill. If you can't deal with the not that great armour, at the turret at least, if you can't deal with the horrible manoeuvrability, if you can't deal with the radio range or the view range, this is the thing that you will be able to get behind. 145 average penetration was good to get through any tier 6 tank before the Japanese heavies came along. And even then, if you get on the side of the Japanese heavies, they stand no chance. With APCR, you get 202 average penetration. 38 with high explosive, but then that's high explosive. It has a bumped up average damage, 135 with AP and APCR, 175 with high explosive. Much more accurate, 0.36 with a standard 2.3 second aim time, and it weighs 591 kilograms. This is the gun that you want to be using. Although it is a toss-up of personal preference, because this is the gun that I use because I always go for penetration over anything else, unless it has completely horrible accuracy. However, if you don't want to use the 75mm Vickers high velocity gun, then you've always got the choice of the 6-pounder, and, well, the 6-pounder is a good, solid, reliable gun. As you can see, if we compare them here, it does have a much better rate of fire, it has less penetration and less average damage, more inaccurate but with a better aim time and weighs less. So it's a choice of rate of fire but less penetration, less alpha, or more penetration, lower rate of fire, higher aim time. So I've obviously gone with the 75 high velocity because it is an outstanding gun at tier 5. There's like nothing that can beat it at tier 5 other than the top 17-pounder on the Archer. Yeah, there's like nothing better than this 75 Vickers high velocity. So 14.5 rate of fire rounds per minute with a gun rammer and also 100% crew without improved vents because, like I said, I'm waiting for it to come on sale. 4.1 second reload time, actually 4.14. It just rounds it down to 1 decimal place. A 35.46 traverse speed for the turret. You know, base is 34, so 34 traverse speed. However, the gun depression is not that great. It's only -4, which if you're trying to come over a ridge, even sideways, where you think you have more gun depression, yeah, you're still not getting that great gun depression, as you can see. So the gun depression is not that great. The gun elevation is better at 12 degrees. 2.2 second aim time, 0.35 dispersion, a 1956 average DPM. May be able to top that over to just over 2000 if I was to get the improved vents. But I don't think I have anything that I can pull the improved vents away from. Not on the Matilda, not on the Churchill, not on the SU, or that. Yeah, you can't fit it on that. It's not on the Type 3. So, yeah, I don't really have any improved vents that I can steal away from in order to actually put on my Churchill. But if I was, probably could get the average DPM to just over 2000, hopefully, and also get that reload time down to about maybe 4.09 perhaps. But yeah, so overall the stats of the Churchill aren't that great, but the gun is fantastic, and that's why I love my Churchill, because it's the gun. It's the gun, and well, it's the Churchill. And you get a crew of 5, which oddly enough you get 2 gunners, and the reason for that is because of this thing. It's the a 3-inch howitzer mounted in the front of the hull, which is what the Churchill I and II had before they replaced it with a basic machine gun, like you got on the Churchill III and up. And that's the whole reason that you have got another gunner, because you need another gunner to operate the 3-inch howitzer. So, yeah, oddly enough, you get 2 gunners without a radio operator who's bundled with the commander. So, overall, it is a crew of 5. And if there wasn't the 3-inch howitzer, then you'd have your very own radio operator like the Russians do. And the fact of this crew, let me just tell you their story. When I first bought the Churchill, this is the crew that came with it. My warrant officer, my staff sergeants, and my final sergeant for the gunner, or the loader even. And they were a 50% crew when I first got my Churchill. And I was playing through my Churchill, and I eventually managed to get them to 91%, or at least I got the commander up to 91%. I then sold my Churchill, because I wasn't using it at that time, and I needed the garage slot, and I also needed the credits. So I sold it. And this was back before it had the very nice HD camo view model even. However, I did not sell the crew. This is the original crew that I sent to the barracks, and I didn't really want to sell my Churchill, but needs must, and I needed the credits and the garage slots, so I sold my Churchill. Then, when I got some gold and the garage slots were on sale, I bought some more garage slots. I bought my Churchill back. I put my good old reliable crew back in, and here they are today. Never been switched out, never gone in a different tank. They've trained with each other from 50% fresh out of training to the battle-hardened veterans that they are here. And they've never left this Churchill. I've pimped out my Churchill. I've got... I don't actually know if these things are on sale. Yes, they are. Very good. Let's put some inscriptions on this thing. Harbinger of the Apocalypse does seem good. However, Dreadnought fits a Churchill. Fireball, Face of War, Hit and Run. Well, not exactly Face of War. Brothers in Arms, we gotta get that. We gotta get that. Invulnerable, Dust Demons, God Save the King. God Save the King. Blockbuster, giving credence to our allies in the USSR. But, for the King! Achilles, Warspite. When I get my Achilles, I'm just going to plaster the name Achilles on it, why not? Talisman. I suppose my Churchill is my talisman. Dragon, Ace, Junior, Gnome, Jumbo, Squirrel. Stupid Fly, that's not one. Yeah, I think let's put Brothers in Arms on the turret. Where are we? God Save the King. God Save the Queen. Man o' War, Brothers in Arms. There we go. So I think Brothers in Arms on the turret, Dreadnought on the side. Nah, we'll swap those around, I think. Brothers in Arms. Dreadnought or Steel Warrior? I think Dreadnought fits the Churchill. Right, there you go. Luckily, things are on sale, so there we go. We've now finally pimped out our Churchill, we have our camouflages, we have our German flags, and we have our Brothers in Arms. And let me tell you, only my very favoritist tanks get the German flag on it, so it's a privilege to get a German flag on my tanks. Especially if they're British. So, anyway, enough of that. Or in fact, actually, I'll leave the crew for now. They can sit there looking pretty. And we'll go into this. So you've got your normal consumables, yeah. Then you've got your equipment. So, Camonet, no, you're a Churchill. You don't stay stationary. You are a Churchill. Do not think of Do not think of stopping. You can be a sniper because you have the penetration with your 75 high velocity gun. But even so, no, not a Camonet. As for wet ammo rack, in case your ammo rack keeps getting damaged, then sure, there's that. Gun rammer is always useful. Definitely fit it on, whether you're using the 6-pounder or you're using the 75 high velocity. Go with that. Binos, once again, don't stay stationary. You're a Churchill. What are you doing? Coated optics, not a bad idea. Gun lane drive, you don't need it. Enhanced springs, Nah, you don't need that. The load capacity you don't need. It has a 43-ton load limit. You may want the suspension durability because look at this. Open tracks at the side of your Churchill. So you may want it for that, but once again, probably a waste of an equipment slot. Spoiler, you are a heavy tank, but you don't have the armour of a heavy tank, so I would say no, don't go with that. Toolbox is always useful, and improve vents is always useful as well. Definitely improve vents. Improve vents and gun rammer is sort of the optimum, I think. Then you've got your commander. You've got your 5-man crew, comprising of 2 gunners for some odd reason. So the commander, I'm going with 6th Sense because 6th Sense is always useful. Then again, you've always got other things such as signal boosting, which isn't a bad idea. Relay after you've got signal boosting. Call for Vengeance, possibly. If your commander / radio operator survives dying, then sure, you could go with that. Situational awareness, also always useful. Could go with that. Eagle Eye as well, not a bad idea. Jack of all trades if you want. Recon is not a bad idea either, so definitely could go with that. Mentor I don't see the point in, and you've got your common skills. I'm probably going to want to get Brothers in Arms at some point. I may train up these guys and then drop for Brothers in Arms, but I don't know. Then you've got your 2 gunners, so this is sort of going to be 2 in 1 for your 2 crews. So I'm training one in Deadeye and I'm training the other in Designated Target, because that's half your reload. So if you're lucky, you could get another shot off, and you probably could make an accurate guess as to where the enemy tank may be, which could be the difference between killing the target and letting the target go, and it could also be the difference between winning and losing the battle. So Deadeye is always a useful thing. It's my 75 high velocity. I want to put Deadeye on it. Designate Target as well, I've just gone over, always a useful thing. Probably not a bad idea to go with Snapshot. Armour, to improve the accuracy of a damaged gun. You could do if your gun keeps getting damaged. Then you've got your common skills, namely Brothers in Arms. Then you've got your driver after you've gone over your other gunner. And, well, clutch braking is definitely going to be useful. Then you've got off-road driving, which is also always useful. Preventive maintenance in case you keep getting set on fire. Smooth ride to improve accuracy when firing on the move. You could do. You are a fairly slow tank, but then I would say probably no. Probably don't try firing on the move. You could attempt it. I certainly attempt it a lot in my Churchill with the 75. But yeah, controlled impact. You're a Churchill. You're not going to get enough speed up unless you're on a downward slope to actually ram anyone with any great force. Unless somebody decides to ram you, which maybe. Then you've got your common skills, namely Brothers in Arms. Then finally we've got Sergeant Stephen Lakey, who is my loader. He's a very faithful loader, and he's training an Adrenaline Rush, which is always useful. If you're on 70 HP or less, then that'll kick in your Adrenaline Rush. Intuition, in case you want to carry around a load of APCR, which I'm sure you may want to if you're using the 6-pounder. 75, you probably don't need to, unless you're going up against, an OI from the front. But then I don't think that's as much of a problem on the Churchill 1 as it is on the Churchill 7. So maybe don't go with that if you're going with the 75 high velocity. But 6-pounder I can understand. Safe storage in case your ammo keeps getting damaged, and then you've got your common skills. So overall, I do love my Churchill. I've pimped it out. I've got Brothers in Arms and Dreadnought newly imprinted onto my tank. I've got my 75mm Vickers high velocity locked, loaded and ready to go. I've got my crew of hardened veterans who have trained with each other since they were in training, and I've of course got my wonderful Churchill. I do love my Churchill. It can be a difficult thing to get used to, due to the fact that the armour is not that great. But if you use it correctly, angle yourself, you can do anything. And that gun is phenomenal. So I will thank you for watching, and goodbye.